Welcome to Stoic Vivu, where ancient wisdom meets modern life. I'm here to help you master your mind and transform your daily challenges using the timeless teachings of the greatest Stoic philosophers. Our mission is simple. Take the profound insights of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, and show you exactly how to apply them to the real pressures you face in today's world. Let me ask you something that might hit close to home. How many times this week have you felt completely overwhelmed by situations you couldn't control? Maybe it was your boss criticizing your work, traffic making you late for an important meeting, or that person who seems determined to make your life difficult. You probably felt your heart racing, your mind spinning with frustration, and that familiar sense of helplessness creeping in. Here's what most people don't realize. You're fighting the wrong battle. You're trying to control things that are completely outside your power while ignoring the one thing you have absolute mastery over. The ancient Stoics discovered this secret over 2,000 years ago, and it's more relevant today than ever before. The Stoics understood something revolutionary. True power doesn't come from controlling external events, people, or circumstances. Real power comes from mastering your responses, your perspective, and your choices in every single moment. When you learn to control your mind, you control your life. Consider the greatest leaders, athletes, and achievers you admire. What separates them from everyone else isn't that they never face adversity. They face just as many challenges, setbacks, and difficult people as anyone else. The difference is how they respond. They've learned to find strength in chaos, opportunity in obstacles, and growth in every challenge. This isn't positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is practical philosophy that has guided emperors through wars, helped enslaved people find freedom within captivity, and enabled ordinary individuals to achieve extraordinary resilience. Marcus Aurelius used these principles while leading the Roman Empire through plague and war. Epictetus developed them while literally enslaved, proving that external circumstances never determine internal freedom. Today, you're going to learn 7 specific techniques that will transform how you handle every challenge life throws at you. These aren't abstract concepts, but concrete practices you can use immediately. You'll discover how to turn any crisis into your greatest strength, find hidden gifts in your worst days, and maintain unshakable calm even when everything seems to be falling apart. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete toolkit for mental mastery. You'll know exactly how to respond when people try to bring you down, how to communicate with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion, and how to choose your focus in a world designed to scatter your attention. The ancient Stoics believed that philosophy isn't meant to be studied in libraries but lived in the real world. Today, we're going to prove they were right. Are you ready to master your mind and take control of your life? Let's begin with the foundation of all Stoic wisdom. 1. Turn any crisis into your greatest strength. Imagine you're sitting in your Chicago office on a gray Tuesday morning when your manager calls you into the conference room. The conversation you've been dreading finally happens. Budget cuts mean your position is being eliminated. After 5 years of dedication, late nights, and missed family dinners, you're suddenly facing unemployment in an uncertain economy. Your mind immediately spirals to mortgage payments, health insurance, and explaining this to your spouse. This moment represents one of life's fundamental tests. Everything you thought was secure has just vanished. Your first instinct might be to panic, blame your company's poor management, or spend the next few hours catastrophizing about your future. But what if I told you that the ancient Stoics would see this moment differently? What if this crisis could actually become the foundation for the best chapter of your life? Epictetus, who understood suffering more deeply than most, taught us something revolutionary. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This wasn't philosophical theory for him. As an enslaved person in ancient Rome, he had every external freedom stripped away, yet he discovered that no one could touch his internal freedom to choose his response. Here's the Stoic secret that changes everything. Every crisis contains two distinct elements. First, there's the external event itself, the job loss, the diagnosis, the betrayal, the financial setback. Second, there's your response to that event. The external event is completely outside your control. Your response is completely within your control. Most people spend 90% of their energy fighting the first element and only 10% mastering the second. The Stoics flip this completely. When you focus your energy on what you control, your response, something remarkable happens. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become the architect of your comeback. That job loss in Chicago isn't just a professional setback. It's data about what wasn't working and an opportunity to find something better aligned with your values. Let me show you the practical technique the Stoics used. It's called the Stoic pause, and you can master it in 3 steps. First, when crisis hits, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what exactly can I control right now? In our job loss scenario, you can't control the company's decision, but you can control your next action. You can't control the job market, but you can control how you approach your search. Second, ask, what opportunity might be hidden in this challenge? Maybe this job loss forces you to finally pursue that career change you've been postponing. Perhaps it gives you the push to start the business you've been dreaming about. The Stoics believed that every obstacle contains the seeds of equivalent or greater benefit, but only if you're looking for it. Third, choose your response consciously. Instead of reactive emotion, choose purposeful action. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, focus on what you'll do next. This isn't about suppressing your feelings. Acknowledge the disappointment, the fear, the uncertainty, but don't let those emotions choose your actions. Marcus Aurelius, who faced plagues, wars, and political conspiracies as emperor, wrote in his private journal, "The mind that pursues the good, whether it achieves it or not, is honored by its very pursuit." He understood that your character grows stronger through adversity, not despite it. Every crisis that doesn't break you teaches you something essential about your own resilience. Consider how this applies beyond job loss. Your relationship ends unexpectedly? That's devastating. But it's also freeing you from a partnership that wasn't serving your growth. Your business investment fails? That's painful, but it's also education you couldn't get any other way. Your health gives you a scare? That's frightening. But it's also a wake-up call to prioritize what truly matters. The key is developing what Stoics call the view from above. When you're in the middle of a crisis, everything feels overwhelming and permanent. But step back and look at your life from a broader perspective. 10 years from now, will this crisis be the thing that destroyed you or the thing that redirected you towards something better? Here's what's really powerful. When you master this approach, you start approaching challenges differently. Instead of hoping for an easy life, you begin hoping for the strength to handle whatever comes. Instead of avoiding difficulties, you start seeing them as training for your character. This doesn't make you reckless or naive. It makes you unshakable. I want you to practice this immediately. Think about a current challenge you're facing. Maybe it's a difficult colleague, a financial pressure, or a family conflict. Apply the Stoic pause. What can you actually control? What opportunity might be hidden here? How can you respond in a way that builds your character? The ancient Stoics discovered something that modern psychology now confirms. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you develop through practice. Every time you respond to crisis with wisdom instead of panic, you're building mental muscle. Every time you find opportunity in obstacle, you're training yourself to see possibilities instead of just problems. Your job loss, your health scare, your relationship ending, your business failing. These aren't just random misfortunes. They're your training ground for becoming the person you're meant to be. The Stoics believed that we don't get to choose what happens to us, but we always get to choose who we become through our responses. Ultimately, the question isn't whether you'll face crises, you will. The question is whether you'll use them to become stronger or let them make you bitter. The Stoics chose strength, and that choice transformed their obstacles into the foundation of their wisdom. Building on this power of response control, we can now discover how to find the hidden gift that exists in every challenge life presents. 2. Find the hidden gift in every challenge. Let's say you're living in Los Angeles, and after 3 years together, your partner tells you they're moving across the country for a job opportunity. Without you, the relationship you thought was heading toward marriage suddenly ends on a random Thursday evening over takeout Chinese food. Your shared apartment feels empty. Your weekend plans evaporate, and that future you'd been planning together disappears in a single conversation. Your friends tell you to look on the bright side, which feels insulting when you're genuinely heartbroken. Your family suggests you'll find someone better, but right now, you can't imagine wanting to date anyone else. Social media shows your ex already posting photos from their new city, seemingly thriving while you're still processing what happened. Everything feels like a loss, and people's attempts to cheer you up feel hollow. Here's where the ancient Stoics offer something different from empty optimism. They don't ask you to pretend this isn't painful or to fake happiness you don't feel. Instead, they teach you to look for what Marcus Aurelius called the hidden profit in every difficult situation. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This isn't about finding silver linings or convincing yourself that bad things are actually good. It's about recognizing that every experience, even painful ones, contains material for your growth. The Stoics believed that wisdom comes through experience, and difficult experiences often contain the most valuable lessons. Think about this relationship ending differently. Yes, you've lost companionship, shared dreams, and emotional security. But what have you gained access to? You now have complete freedom to rediscover who you are outside of this partnership. You can explore interests your ex wasn't enthusiastic about. You can reconnect with friends you might have neglected. You can make decisions based purely on your own values and goals. More importantly, this breakup is teaching you something essential about resilience. 6 months ago, if someone had told you this relationship would end, you might have thought it would destroy you. But here you are, still functioning, still capable of finding moments of peace or even laughter. You're discovering that you're stronger than you realized. Marcus Aurelius faced the death of multiple children, betrayal by trusted friends, and constant warfare during his reign. Yet he wrote, When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. He wasn't being pessimistic. He was being realistic so he could find wisdom in whatever the day brought. Here's the practical technique the Stoics used to find hidden gifts in challenges. They called it the opportunity inventory, and you can apply it to any difficult situation. First, ask yourself, what skills is this situation forcing me to develop? Your breakup is probably pushing you to become more self-reliant, to rebuild your social circle, and to clarify what you actually want in a relationship. Second, consider, what was I avoiding that this situation is forcing me to address? Maybe you were staying in a relationship that had stopped growing because change felt scary. Perhaps you were postponing important personal goals because they seemed too risky to pursue as a couple. Sometimes life forces us toward growth we needed but were resisting. Third, examine, how is this preparing me for future opportunities? The independence you're building now will make you a stronger partner in your next relationship. The self-knowledge you're gaining will help you make better choices. The resilience you're developing will serve you in countless future challenges. Seneca, who lost enormous fortunes multiple times and faced political exile, understood this deeply. He wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Your ended relationship isn't just a loss. It's the beginning of a new chapter where you get to be the sole author of your story. Consider how this applies to other life challenges. You lose a friendship over a disagreement? That's painful, but it's also clarifying which relationships are strong enough to survive conflict and which were more superficial than you realized. You failed to get the promotion you wanted? That's disappointing, but it's also information about whether this company truly values your contributions. The Stoics discovered something profound. The same event can be either a disaster or an opportunity, depending entirely on how you choose to interpret it. Your interpretation isn't just philosophical theory. It literally shapes your emotional experience and your future actions. Here's what's remarkable about this practice. When you consistently look for hidden gifts in challenges, you start approaching difficulties with curiosity instead of just dread. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "What is this here to teach me?" This shift in questioning transforms you from a victim of circumstances into a student of life. Try this right now with whatever challenge you're currently facing. Maybe it's a health issue that's forced you to slow down and reassess your priorities. Perhaps it's a financial setback that's teaching you to distinguish between wants and needs. Or it could be a family conflict that's pushing you to set healthier boundaries. The hidden gift isn't always obvious immediately. Sometimes it takes months or even years to see how a painful experience redirected you towards something better. But the Stoics believed that if you're looking for the lesson, you'll find it. And once you find it, the experience transforms from something that happened to you into something that happened for you. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, confine yourself to the present. You can't change what happened, and you can't control what happens next. But you can choose to mine this present moment for its hidden value. Every challenge contains seeds of strength, wisdom, or opportunity. Your job is to find them and let them grow. This perspective mastery naturally leads us to one of life's greatest tests: how to respond when other people try to bring you down or treat you poorly. 3. Rise above toxic people with ancient grace. Picture this scenario. You're working at a prestigious Manhattan law firm, and you've just landed the biggest client presentation of your career. You've spent weeks preparing, sacrificing evenings and weekends to make it perfect. The morning of the presentation, your colleague Sarah, someone you trusted and even mentored, walks into the conference room and presents your exact ideas as her own. She's taken your research, your strategy, even your specific talking points, and delivered them flawlessly to the partners while you sit there in stunned silence. Your mind races with fury. You want to interrupt, to call her out publicly, to expose what she's done. Your heart pounds as you imagine the satisfaction of watching her squirm when you reveal the truth. Part of you wants to play her game, to be just as manipulative, just as willing to throw others under the bus. After all, if this is how the game is played, maybe you need to learn the rules. This moment captures one of life's most challenging tests. How do you respond when someone deliberately wrongs you? How do you maintain your integrity when others abandon theirs? How do you rise above toxic behavior without becoming toxic yourself? Marcus Aurelius faced this exact dilemma on a much larger scale. As Roman emperor, he dealt with generals who plotted against him, senators who slandered him publicly, and even a trusted friend who led a rebellion against his rule. He had the power to destroy these people, to respond with equal cruelty, to become as ruthless as those who opposed him. Instead, he wrote in his private journal, "The best revenge is not to be like that." This wasn't weakness or passive acceptance. It was the most powerful response possible. Marcus Aurelius understood something profound. When you respond to toxic behavior with toxic behavior, you don't defeat your enemy, you become your enemy. You let their worst qualities infect your character. You give them the power to transform you into something you don't want to be. Think about the worst people you know, the manipulators, the backstabbers, the people who seem to succeed through cruelty and deception. Now ask yourself honestly, would you want to live inside their minds? Would you want to experience the world through their perspective? The answer is obviously no, because deep down you understand that their behavior comes from a place of misery, insecurity, and emptiness. Here's the Stoic insight that changes everything. Toxic people are already punished by being who they are. Your colleague Sarah might get credit for your presentation today, but she has to live with the knowledge that her success is built on theft. She has to look in the mirror knowing she's a fraud. She has to maintain relationships built on deception. That's not a life you'd ever choose. The Stoics developed a specific technique for handling toxic people that they called character-based response. Instead of asking, "How can I hurt them back?" you ask, "How can I respond in a way that builds my character?" Instead of, "What would make them suffer?" you ask, "What would make me proud of my response?" Let's apply this to your workplace betrayal. A character-based response might involve calmly approaching the partners after the meeting and clarifying the source of the ideas. Not in anger, not to destroy Sarah, but simply to set the record straight. You present your original research and timeline, not as an attack on her, but as important information they should have. Or perhaps your character-based response is to let this incident go entirely and focus on doing even better work going forward. You might decide that fighting over credit is beneath you and that your long-term reputation will speak for itself. You demonstrate through your actions that you're someone who rises above petty conflicts. The key is that your response comes from your values, not from your emotions. You're not reacting to what Sarah did. You're acting according to who you choose to be. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said the best revenge is not to be like that. Your integrity becomes your victory. Seneca, who dealt with the notoriously toxic Emperor Nero, understood this principle deeply. He wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. When someone treats you poorly, your immediate emotional response will usually lead you toward behavior you'll regret. But if you pause and ask yourself how your best self would respond, you almost always find a better path." This doesn't mean being a doormat or accepting abuse. Sometimes a character-based response involves setting firm boundaries or even removing toxic people from your life entirely. But it means your actions come from strength and principle, not from hurt and revenge. Here's what's remarkable about this approach. When you consistently respond to toxicity with grace, you become someone that toxic behavior can't touch. You develop what the Stoics called inner citadel, a core of character that remains untouchable regardless of how others behave toward you. The people who try to bring you down lose their power over you because you refuse to play their game. Your colleagues notice that you remain steady under pressure, that you don't get pulled into drama, that you maintain your principles even when it's difficult. Your character becomes your reputation, and your reputation becomes your strength. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Sarah's betrayal is an outside event. Your response is completely within your power. Choose the response that makes you proud to be you. When we've mastered our responses to others, we're ready for the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult or scary. 4. Speak your truth with stoic courage. You're sitting in a Seattle tech company's open office space when you overhear your team lead making dismissive comments about your coworker Maria's accent during a client call. "Don't worry," he tells the client after Maria leaves the room. "We'll have someone more articulate handle the follow-up." Your stomach drops as you realize what just happened. Maria is brilliant. She has 2 engineering degrees and speaks 3 languages fluently, but she's being undermined because English isn't her first language. Everyone in earshot heard the comment. Your other teammates suddenly become very interested in their computer screens. The room fills with that uncomfortable silence that happens when people witness something wrong but don't know what to do about it. You have a choice. Pretend you didn't hear it and go back to your work, or speak up and potentially make yourself a target of your team lead's displeasure. Your mind immediately starts calculating the risks. This person controls your project assignments, your performance reviews, and potentially your career advancement. Speaking up could label you as a troublemaker, someone who doesn't understand office politics. You tell yourself that maybe you misunderstood, that it's not really your place to get involved, that Maria can handle herself. But deep down, you know exactly what you witnessed, and you know that your silence makes you complicit in what just happened. Marcus Aurelius faced this same moral crossroads countless times as emperor. He wrote in his personal journal, "We can commit injustice by doing nothing." This wasn't abstract philosophy for him, it was a daily reality. Every time he remained silent when advisors suggested cruel policies, every time he failed to speak up when he witnessed abuse of power, he became part of the problem. The Stoics understood something that most people miss. Moral courage isn't a grand gesture you make once in a lifetime. It's a daily practice of small moments when you choose truth over comfort, principle over convenience. These moments define who you are more than any major decision you'll ever make. Here's why most people stay silent when they witness wrongdoing. They focus on what they might lose instead of what they'll gain. They think about potential conflict, possible retaliation, or social awkwardness. But the Stoics taught us to focus on what we gain from speaking truth. Self-respect, integrity, and the knowledge that we stood for our values when it mattered. Epictetus, who understood oppression more intimately than most, said, "No one can hurt you without your permission. When you stay silent in the face of injustice, you're giving others permission to define your character. You're letting fear choose your actions instead of letting your principles guide you." Let me show you the Stoic framework for moral courage. It's called the Courage Assessment, and it works in 3 steps. First, ask yourself, is this clearly wrong? In our office scenario, undermining someone based on their accent is clearly discriminatory and unprofessional. There's no ambiguity here. Second, consider, am I the right person to address this? You witnessed it directly, you work in the same team, and you have the ability to speak up. You may not be the only person who could act, but you're certainly someone who can. Third, determine, what's the smallest action I can take that aligns with my values? You don't have to give a dramatic speech or file a formal complaint immediately. Maybe you start by approaching your team lead privately. "Hey, I wanted to follow up on that comment about Maria. I think there might have been a misunderstanding about her communication skills." The key insight is this: moral courage doesn't require you to be fearless. It requires you to act despite your fear. The Stoics believe that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing what's right even when you're afraid. Consider what happens when you practice this consistently. When you speak up for the coworker being treated unfairly, when you correct misinformation in meetings, when you refuse to participate in gossip or discrimination, you become someone people respect and trust. Your reputation for integrity becomes one of your greatest professional assets. But here's what's even more important. You become someone you respect. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you build what the Stoics called character strength. Each moment of moral courage makes the next one easier. You train yourself to be the person who stands up for what's right. Seneca, who navigated the dangerous politics of imperial Rome, understood the practical side of moral courage. He wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Sometimes speaking truth means ending comfortable relationships with people who expect your complicity. But it also means beginning authentic relationships with people who share your values. In our office scenario, speaking up might create temporary tension with your team lead, but it might also deepen your relationship with Maria and other colleagues who respect your integrity. It sends a clear message about who you are and what you stand for. The Stoics also taught the importance of choosing your battles wisely. You don't have to turn every minor disagreement into a moral crusade. But when you witness clear injustice, when someone is being harmed, when your core values are at stake, these are the moments that define your character. Here's the practice. Start small and build your courage muscle. Speak up when someone tells an offensive joke. Correct misinformation when you hear it. Defend someone who's being unfairly criticized behind their back. These small acts of moral courage prepare you for the bigger moments when speaking truth really matters. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. Part of being human is standing up for other humans when they need it. Your job title might be engineer or analyst or manager, but your deeper job is to be someone who makes the world slightly better through your choices. The courage to speak truth isn't just about helping others. It's about becoming the person you're meant to be. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you move closer to the version of yourself you're most proud to be. Speaking truth requires us to understand something fundamental about power and responsibility in every situation we face. 5. Own your power in every situation. Visualize this: you're a young professional living in Denver, renting a one-bedroom apartment that you love. The neighborhood is perfect, your commute is easy, and you've built relationships with local businesses. Then your landlord calls with devastating news. He's selling the building to developers who plan to demolish it for luxury condos. You have 60 days to find a new place in a rental market where prices have skyrocketed 40% in the past year. Your first reaction is pure outrage. This feels completely unfair. You've been a perfect tenant, always paid rent on time, and even helped maintain the property. You start researching tenant rights, looking for legal loopholes, drafting angry emails about corporate greed destroying communities. You spend hours on social media ranting about housing injustice and reading stories of other people facing similar situations. 3 weeks pass. You're exhausted from being angry, but you still don't have a new place to live. You've spent most of your energy fighting something you can't change while the clock keeps ticking toward your move-out date. You feel powerless, victimized, and increasingly desperate. Here's where the ancient Stoics would stop you and ask a crucial question. Are you owning your power or giving it away? Epictetus, who understood powerlessness more deeply than most people ever will, taught his students, some things are within our power, while others are not. This wasn't philosophical theory for someone who had been enslaved. It was survival wisdom. He learned to distinguish between what he could control and what he couldn't, and to pour all his energy into the first category. Your housing situation perfectly illustrates this principle. You cannot control your landlord's decision to sell. You cannot control the developer's plans. You cannot control the rental market or city housing policies. Fighting these realities is like arguing with gravity. It's a waste of your most precious resource, your energy and attention. But here's what you absolutely can control: your response to this situation. You can control how quickly you start apartment hunting. You can control whether you expand your search radius or find creative housing solutions. You can control your attitude during viewings and your approach to negotiating with new landlords. You can control whether you see this as pure victimization or as an opportunity to find an even better living situation. The Stoics called this owning your power, and it's one of the most liberating concepts you'll ever encounter. When you stop wasting energy on what you can't control and focus entirely on what you can control, you become incredibly effective. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become the author of your response. Let me show you the practical technique the Stoics used. It's called the power audit, and you can apply it to any challenging situation. First, make 2 lists: what I cannot control and what I can control. For your housing crisis, the first list might include the landlord's decision, market prices, and the timeline. The second list includes your search strategy, your budget flexibility, your willingness to consider different neighborhoods, and your networking efforts. Second, commit to spending 0 mental energy on the first list and all your energy on the second. Every time you catch yourself complaining about rental prices or researching tenant rights that won't help your situation, Redirect that energy toward actionable steps. Call more landlords. Explore different types of housing. Ask friends about potential sublets. Third, look for hidden opportunities within your constraints. Maybe this forced move leads you to a neighborhood you never would have considered that turns out to be perfect. Perhaps sharing housing with a roommate opens up financial possibilities you hadn't explored. Sometimes what feels like limitation actually creates freedom. Marcus Aurelius faced this choice constantly as emperor. Plagues devastated his empire, barbarian tribes invaded his borders, and political conspiracies threatened his rule. He could have spent his time lamenting how unfair it was that these problems fell during his reign. Instead, he focused entirely on his responses. How could he organize medical care during the plague? What military strategies would be most effective? How could he maintain justice despite political pressure? This is the paradox the Stoics discovered. The more you accept what you cannot control, the more power you have over what you can control. When you stop fighting reality, you can work with reality. When you stop being a victim of circumstances, you can become a master of responses. Consider how this applies beyond housing crises. Your company announces layoffs, and your job might be eliminated. You can't control corporate decisions, but you can control how aggressively you network, how you prepare for interviews, and whether you use this uncertainty to finally pursue that career change you've been considering. Your relationship hits a rough patch, and your partner seems distant. You can't control their feelings or force them to communicate, but you can control how you show up in the relationship, whether you address issues directly, and how you work on becoming the partner you want to be. The power audit works because it eliminates what psychologists call learned helplessness, the feeling that nothing you do matters. When you clearly see what's within your control, you realize you have more power than you thought. You just weren't using it effectively. Seneca, who lost fortunes multiple times and faced political exile, understood this deeply. He wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Most of our suffering comes from fighting against things we cannot change rather than channeling our energy into things we can influence." Here's what's remarkable. When you consistently practice owning your power, you become someone that circumstances cannot defeat. You develop what the Stoics called inner fortress, an unshakable core that remains strong regardless of external events. You stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating the best possible outcomes within whatever conditions exist. Try this immediately with whatever challenge you're facing right now. Do your power audit. List what you cannot control, then commit to ignoring that list entirely. Focus all your attention on what you can control and take action on at least one item today. Once we own our power, we must learn to wield it wisely through careful and intentional communication. 6. Master the art of wise communication. Consider this scene. You're at your family's Thanksgiving dinner in Phoenix, and your uncle starts making sweeping political statements that make your blood boil. He's saying things you find not just wrong but genuinely harmful, and he's speaking with the confidence of someone who's never questioned his own assumptions. Your cousins are nodding along. Your grandmother looks uncomfortable but says nothing, and you feel pressure building in your chest like a steam engine about to explode. Every fiber of your being wants to interrupt him mid-sentence and deliver a passionate speech about why he's wrong. You've got facts, statistics, and moral arguments ready to fire. You can already imagine the satisfaction of watching his smug expression crumble as you dismantle his position piece by piece. Your heart races as you prepare to unleash everything you've been thinking. But then you pause and remember something. How many minds have you ever changed by arguing with someone at a family dinner? How many relationships have been strengthened by passionate political debates over turkey and stuffing? How many times have you regretted something you said in anger versus how many times you've regretted staying quiet? Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, understood the power of restraint when he said, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." You can get back up after you've fallen physically, but you cannot unsay words that have been spoken. Once those heated words leave your mouth, they change relationships permanently. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat or never expressing your views. It means understanding that how you communicate is often more important than what you communicate. The Stoics believed that wisdom lies not just in having good ideas, but in knowing when, how, and to whom to express them. Think about the people who have most influenced your thinking throughout your life. Were they the ones who argued with you aggressively, who made you feel stupid for your beliefs? Or were they the ones who listened thoughtfully, asked good questions, and shared their perspectives with respect and curiosity? Almost certainly it was the latter. Marcus Aurelius, who had to communicate with everyone from philosophers to generals to barbarian chieftains, developed what modern people might call emotional intelligence. He wrote, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, think of the good qualities of your companions." Even when dealing with difficult people, he looked for something to respect rather than something to attack. Here's the Stoic framework for wise communication, which I call the 3-breath method. When someone says something that triggers your desire to respond emotionally, take 3 conscious breaths before speaking. During the first breath, ask yourself, what is this person really trying to communicate? Often, inflammatory statements come from underlying fears, frustrations, or misunderstandings. During the second breath, consider, what outcome do I actually want from this conversation? Do you want to prove you're right, to make the other person feel foolish, to win points with onlookers? Or do you want to understand their perspective, to share your thoughts, or to maintain a relationship while disagreeing? During the third breath, choose your response consciously. Maybe you decide to ask a genuine question. That's interesting. What experiences led you to that conclusion? Perhaps you choose to share your perspective without attacking theirs. I've had different experiences that led me to see it differently. Or you might decide that this isn't the right time or place for this conversation and change the subject gracefully. The key insight is this: your immediate emotional response is usually about your ego, not about effective communication. You want to prove you're smart, right, and morally superior. But effective communication is about connection, understanding, and influence. These goals often require completely different approaches. Seneca, who navigated the treacherous waters of Roman politics, understood this deeply. He wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." When someone says something that angers you, your immediate response will almost always make the situation worse. But if you pause and respond thoughtfully, you can often make it better. Consider how this applies to your uncle's political statements. An immediate emotional response might involve lecturing him about his ignorance, which would likely make him defensive and even more entrenched in his views. But a thoughtful response might involve asking questions that help him examine his assumptions. That's an interesting point. I'm curious about what you think would happen if we tried a different approach. This doesn't mean being fake or manipulative. It means being strategic about how you pursue your actual goals. If your goal is to influence someone's thinking, attacking their current beliefs is usually counterproductive. If your goal is to maintain family relationships while disagreeing, finding common ground is usually more effective than highlighting differences. The Stoics also understood the power of silence. Sometimes the wisest communication is no communication at all. If someone is drunk, angry, or clearly not open to genuine dialogue, engaging with them often serves no purpose except to satisfy your own ego. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." Here's what's remarkable about mastering wise communication. It makes you more influential, not less. When people know you think before you speak, they listen more carefully when you do speak. When you have a reputation for being thoughtful rather than reactive, your words carry more weight. Practice this immediately. The next time someone says something that triggers you, whether it's in a meeting, on social media, or in a personal conversation, use the 3-breath method. Ask what they're really trying to communicate, consider what outcome you want, and choose your response consciously. The ancient Stoics discovered that self-control in communication is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. It prevents countless regrets, preserves important relationships, and makes you someone others trust with their thoughts and feelings. Wise communication begins with mastering what the Stoics considered the most important skill of all: controlling your attention. 7. Choose your focus, shape your destiny. Imagine you wake up in your Miami apartment on a Saturday morning with plans to have a productive, peaceful day. You decide to quickly check your phone before getting out of bed, just to see if there are any important messages. Within minutes, you're scrolling through a news feed filled with political outrage, a social media timeline showing friends' highlight reels from exotic vacations you can't afford, and notifications from apps designed to grab your attention every few seconds. By the time you finally put your phone down, 30 minutes have passed. Your mind is buzzing with anxiety about world events you can't control, envy about other people's seemingly perfect lives, and a scattered feeling that makes it hard to focus on anything meaningful. You had planned to read, exercise, or work on a personal project, but now you feel restless and unfocused. Your day hasn't even started, but your mental energy is already depleted. This scenario plays out millions of times every day across America, and it represents one of the most important battles of modern life: the battle for your attention. What you choose to focus on literally shapes who you become, how you feel, and what you accomplish. Yet most people hand control of their attention to algorithms designed by companies whose profits depend on keeping you distracted, agitated, and constantly clicking. Marcus Aurelius understood something that modern neuroscience now confirms: our life is what our thoughts make it. Your daily experience isn't determined by your circumstances as much as it's determined by what you choose to pay attention to within those circumstances. Your thoughts create your emotional reality, and your attention controls your thoughts. Think about two people living in the same city, working similar jobs, facing similar challenges. One person starts each day reading news about everything wrong with the world, scrolls through social media comparing their life to others, and fills their mind with divisive political content. The other person starts their day reading something inspiring, focuses on their goals and relationships, and carefully curates their information diet. These two people will have completely different experiences of life, not because their external circumstances are different, but because their attention patterns create different internal realities. The first person will feel anxious, envious, and powerless. The second will feel focused, grateful, and capable. Same city, same basic life situation, completely different quality of life. The Stoics developed a specific practice for attention mastery that they called morning reflection. Each day, they would deliberately choose what deserved their mental energy and what didn't. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Here's the daily attention audit technique that can transform your life. Every morning, before you check any device or consume any media, ask yourself 3 questions. First, what deserves my mental energy today? This might include work projects that matter, relationships that need attention, personal goals you're pursuing, or problems you can actually solve. Second, what will steal my mental energy if I let it? This might include news about events you can't influence, social media comparisons, gossip about people you don't even know, or worry about hypothetical future scenarios. The key is recognizing these attention thieves before they rob your focus. Third, how will I protect my attention today? This might mean putting your phone in another room during focused work, checking news only once daily at a designated time, or choosing to read something meaningful instead of scrolling mindlessly. You're not avoiding reality. You're choosing which aspects of reality deserve your limited mental resources. Epictetus, who understood the power of mental discipline, taught that wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. This applies perfectly to attention. The person who needs constant stimulation, who must check every notification, who feels compelled to consume every piece of information, is mentally impoverished. The person who can choose their focus deliberately is mentally wealthy. Consider what happens when you apply this to your daily routine. Instead of starting your day with news designed to make you anxious, you start with reading that inspires or educates you. Instead of filling dead time with social media scrolling, you use those moments for reflection or planning. Instead of letting your mind wander to worries and complaints, you direct it toward gratitude and possibility. The ancient Stoics understood that attention is like water. It flows wherever there's an opening unless you deliberately channel it. If you don't consciously direct your attention, it will be directed by whoever wants to profit from it. News companies want your attention focused on outrage because outrage keeps you watching. Social media companies want your attention scattered and reactive because that keeps you scrolling. But when you take control of your attention, you take control of your life experience. Seneca wrote, "Life is long enough if you know how to use it." The same is true of attention. You have enough mental energy to accomplish amazing things if you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. Here's what's remarkable about attention mastery. It doesn't just change what you accomplish. It changes who you become. When you consistently focus on growth, gratitude, and meaningful goals, you literally rewire your brain for positivity and effectiveness. When you consistently focus on problems you can't solve and comparisons that make you feel inadequate, you wire your brain for anxiety and dissatisfaction. The practice starts now. Before you check any device after finishing this video, decide what deserves your next hour of attention. Choose consciously instead of defaulting to whatever notification appears first. Your future self will thank you for every moment of attention you invest wisely instead of spending carelessly. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, confine yourself to the present. Your attention is always happening in the present moment. Each time you choose your focus deliberately, you're shaping not just this moment but all the moments that follow. Your attention creates your experience, and your experience creates your life. With complete attention mastery, we're ready to integrate these 7 practices into a daily system that will transform how you handle every challenge life presents. You now possess 7 ancient secrets that have guided emperors through wars, helped enslaved people find freedom within captivity, and enabled ordinary individuals to achieve extraordinary resilience. These aren't just philosophical concepts. They're practical tools you can use immediately to transform how you handle every challenge life throws at you. Think about where you were when we started this journey together. Maybe you felt overwhelmed by situations you couldn't control, frustrated by difficult people in your life, or scattered by the constant demands on your attention. Now you have a complete toolkit for mental mastery. The power to turn any crisis into strength, find hidden gifts and challenges, rise above toxic people with grace, speak truth with courage, own your power in every situation, communicate with wisdom, and choose your focus deliberately. The ancient Stoics understood something that modern psychology now confirms. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you develop through daily practice. Every time you apply these principles, every time you pause before reacting, look for opportunity in an obstacle, or choose your response consciously, you're building mental muscle that serves you for life. Marcus Aurelius didn't become wise by reading philosophy once. He practiced these principles daily, writing reminders to himself that we can still read today. Epictetus didn't develop unshakable inner freedom overnight. He trained his mind through years of deliberate practice. Seneca didn't master these concepts through inspiration alone. He applied them consistently through every triumph and setback. Your transformation begins with a single choice. Will you let these insights remain interesting ideas, or will you make them living practices? The Stoics believed that philosophy isn't meant to be studied in libraries but lived in the real world. Today, you have the opportunity to prove they were right. Start small. Choose one technique from today's video, maybe the Stoic pause when facing crisis, the 3-breath method for wise communication, or the daily attention audit. Practice it consistently for 1 week. Notice how it changes not just your responses, but your entire experience of life. Remember, you're not trying to become perfect. You're trying to become stronger. Every challenge you face is training for your character. Every difficult person you encounter is practice for maintaining your principles. Every crisis you navigate is preparation for future leadership. The ancient wisdom you've learned today has survived over 2,000 years because it works. It worked in the marble halls of Rome, in the philosophical schools of Athens, and it will work in your modern life. You have everything you need to master your mind and take control of your responses. But knowledge without action is worthless. The Stoics would say that the time for reading is over. The time for living these principles has begun. If this video has given you tools that can transform your life, I encourage you to subscribe to the Stoic Vivu channel for more ancient wisdom that applies to modern challenges. Like this video if it helped you see new possibilities for handling life's difficulties, and share it with someone who could benefit from these timeless insights. Your journey to mental mastery starts now. The ancient Stoics are waiting to guide you.